What up, y'all? This is Tracy from Nerd Squish, and today we're gonna talk about my top 10 vampire movies. Powerful, alluring, and deadly, vampires have captivated audiences for centuries. Cinema, TV shows, books, and stage plays, we just can't get enough of these creatures of the night. Whether it's the horrifying, disfigured kind, or the modern, sexy vampire, there's just something about them that just pulls you in. Maybe it's because these monsters are often used as metaphors for things that we deal with in real life. Addiction, loneliness, and sexuality. Or maybe it's just the fact that we all want to watch overly attractive people drink blood and we all have monster complexes. I don't know, but I'm into it. So I've decided to compile a list of my top 10 favorite vampire movies. Now, there is a vast array of vampire movies in many different subgenres, so this was really hard to just pick 10. No, seriously, I really stressed about only picking these top 10, and I might still be second guessing my final picks. So without further ado, let's get into it. Wow, how do people talk with these? I got a lisp, and there's nothing, nobody wants to hear that. So, you know, we're gonna forget that happened. We're gonna put them back into their happy little box. So without further ado, let's get into it. Coming in at number 10, we have Bram Stoker's Dracula. There was no way that this 1992 version of the Dracula story was not going to make it on this list. This film is dramatic as hell, and as an overly dramatic person, I can get down with that. The cinematography in this movie is so damn good. It's honestly the ultimate Dracula aesthetic. One of the most impressive things of this movie is the practical effects and the costume design. Francis Ford Coppola refused to use any CGI in this film, and thank God he made that decision because the movie still looks stellar today. The costumes are absolutely dreamy. It's kind of hard to pick just one because they're all so iconic. Although my two favorites are Dracula's armor and Lucy's wedding gown. And I love that we get to see Dracula in all of his different forms in this film. I'm talking about a knight, a wolf, a bat, some creepy old dude, and suave as hell in this suit. Gary Oldman absolutely kills it as Dracula. He's the star, and he knows it. Coming in at number 9, we have The Invitation. In this 2022 film, we follow Evie, who's a struggling artist and decides to take a DNA test after her mother's death. Because of this, she discovers a distant cousin that lives in England, and after they meet up, he invites her to a family wedding. And Evie is totally out of her element when she gets there. You know, not only is she walking around with all these highfalutin people, but strange things kind of start happening around this castle. However, things kind of start to look up for her when she falls in love with the Lord of the Manor, Walter DeVille, who we later find out is Dracula, the OG himself. The movie is full of twists and turns and so many nods to the original Dracula, which for a, Universal Monster fan and a fan of the book, it's dreamy. I loved every minute of it. Unfortunately, I feel like this movie is super underrated, and I blame the marketing team for this. It was definitely marketed towards horror fans, however, it should have been marketed towards the book girlies. This is the primetime fantasy horror romance that readers crave. This is what the book top girlies want. Now look, I may have lost a lot of you that have never seen the movie, and I'm starting to talk about book talk. You're probably like, no, you know what? I don't want to touch that. We're getting into some strange vibes, but I really do believe that this is a really great modern retelling of the classic Dracula story. I will admit that I didn't like the ending. It kind of made it a little bit cheesy, but the rest of the movie is so good that this was a no-brainer on my list. Coming in at number 8, we have the classic Dracula. Now, we can't have a top 10 vampire movie list without Todd Browning's 1931 classic. This movie right here changed everything. It kickstarted the Universal Monsters franchise, and it moved horror movies into sound cinema. That being said, you can kind of tell that this is the first time that the director had ever worked with sound in a film, because you have these really weird, like long and creepy silences, which in the end I think helps make this movie and this character even scarier. This right here is the most iconic vampire of all time. And without this film, we wouldn't have all the vampire movies and media that we know and love today. Coming in at number 7, we have 2007's 30 Days of Night. I actually didn't watch this movie until pretty recently, and upon watching it, I was immediately mad at myself for not watching it sooner. This movie, based off of a comic book miniseries of the same name, tells the story of an Alaskan town that is attacked by vampires during a 30-day long polar night. This concept is absolutely brilliant. The vampires in this film are brutal, yet organized, which makes them truly terrifying. They're almost kind of alien-like at times, as they speak their own language that was specifically created for the film. I love the look of the fully black eyes for this vampire design. For the most part, they look pretty human, but their eyes are fully black, making them void of humanity. So immediately, when I'm seeing these characters with these all black eyes, I thought of Quint from Jaws when he says,
"He's got lifeless eyes, black eyes, like a doll's eyes. When he comes at you, doesn't seem to be living until he bites you."
I also like that the vampires really don't get an explanation, at least in the movie, of where they come from, because that makes them even scarier. I am a firm believer of, like, I don't need an origin story. When you give me an origin story for something, 9 times out of 10, it's gonna cheapen the whole idea. So I love the mystery behind these monsters. And also, I just really love this movie because I love Josh Hartnett. I think he's a great actor, and specifically, I know when he's gonna be in a horror film, it's going to be a good time. Coming in at number 6, we have one of the most recent vampire films, Abigail. This movie is a reimagining of the classic 1936 Dracula's Daughter. Now, it's very different from the original source material, but it is hella fun. It follows a group of criminals that kidnap the daughter of this powerful underworld figure, and when they bring her back to this isolated mansion, they realize that she's actually the daughter of Dracula, and now they have to fight to stay alive. This movie is so damn fun. I mean, come on, it's a little girl dressed as a ballerina just slaughtering people. What's not to love about that? You have monsters, action, and comedy, and it's very on par in tone with films such as the 1999 Mummy and Van Helsing. And although the movie never takes itself too seriously, it's loaded with Dracula lore. So again, it's one of those movies, if you are a nerd about the original Universal monsters as well as the original book by Bram Stoker, it is really, really fun to pick out all the little Easter eggs of this film. Now, I know this is a super, super new film, but it revamped classic monsters, and as a result, I had to add this to my list because it's just so much fun to watch. Okay, I need to take a little water break. Let's take this little moment before we get into the second half of our list. If you're new here, this is Nerd Squish, where we take everything spooky and we take everything nerdy and we squish it all together. So if you like vampire movies, Halloween, and pop culture, definitely hit that subscribe button so you can see more videos from us in the future. Coming in at number 5, we have What We Do in the Shadows. This mockumentary follows 4 vampire housemates struggling to adapt to modern life, and it's unbelievably hilarious. Imagine watching The Real World, but it was all the guys from Monty Python, and they were all vampires, and then you get this movie, which in my personal opinion is a dreamy formula. The characters are so fun, and they're very, very over the top, making this movie extremely quotable.
I go for a look which I call dead but delicious.
Plot-wise, there's not a whole lot going on, which honestly helps the hilarity to ensue as you watch these like terrifying creatures just do like very everyday, boring things. I remember when they first announced that they were going to make a TV show and it was going to be all new characters, kind of like a reboot or whatever, and I was like, I'm not watching this. This is stupid. Like, these characters are so great. Why would they do that? Now, needless to say, I did watch the show, and it is now one of my favorite shows of all time, and I can thank this amazing movie for it. Coming in at number 4, we have 2023's The Last Voyage of the Demeter. This movie is an adaptation of the Captain's Log of Chapter 7 of the 1897 Dracula novel. It tells the story of the crew of the Demeter as they set sail from Carpathia to London, and one by one they are killed off by a mysterious creature on board. Now, this particular portion of the novel is only 14 pages, so they had to take a lot of liberties to fill in 2 hours with brand new characters and concepts never before seen in the book. Much like the shark in Jaws, Dracula is a looming presence and rarely seen in the film. But when we do see him, we're seeing Dracula like we've never seen him before. He's not this suave, handsome, charming man, but this rabid, wild animal. And I love that although this comes straight from the source material, it's completely original. In my opinion, this is one of the best modern Dracula movies. I just realized that I've referenced Jaws twice now in this video. Coming in at number 3, we have 2004's Van Helsing. This action horror movie follows the famous monster hunter Van Helsing as he is sent by the Vatican to Transylvania to stop Dracula. This movie, at the time, maybe still now, but definitely at the time, was a modern universal monster dream. You've got Dracula, his brides, Frankenstein, the Wolfman, and Van Helsing all entering the ring. It was so amazing that my brain was overwhelmed with joy when I first saw this movie, and in fact, I have a very vivid memory of the first time I saw this film. I was in high school and I went with 2 of my friends to the midnight premiere, and it was the best. This type of action horror is my favorite tone for a movie. It has everything that I would want in a story. Action, monsters, and just a little dash of romance. The only downfall of this movie is the terrible early 2000s CGI. This film also furthered my obsession with Hugh Jackman and wanting to be Kate Beckinsale, which coincidentally leads us to my next pick. Because coming in at number 2, we have Underworld. I feel like because we're talking about Underworld, we should just put like the 2000s blue like tint over the video, right? Like we're in the movie, because like everything at that time was just blue. In this 2003 action horror film, we learn about the secret history and world of werewolves and vampires that lurks in the shadows. The movie centers around Celine, who is a death dealer, which basically just means she's a soldier that fights lycans or werewolves. In the process of hunting lycans, she discovers that they're looking for a human named Michael Corvin because his blood is believed to be the key to finally and successfully creating vampire lycan hybrids. Now naturally, Celine falls in love with him because he's beautiful, and she goes against her coven by going and saving Michael versus killing him. This movie right here altered something in my brain chemistry. Celine was badass and beautiful and had a boyfriend that was a werewolf vampire hybrid, and I wanted nothing more than to be her. Due to the movie's gothic visuals and its interesting vampire werewolf mythology, it spawned a franchise of 5 movies. And the last couple of movies were kind of terrible, but I love the first 3, so I'm gonna kind of cheat and just like roll all of those into this one entry. So, you know, I'm really just saving you from listening to a whole movie where I'm just rambling about the Underworld franchise, so you're welcome for that. Don't even get me started on how amazing the soundtrack for this movie is, okay? Oh, you're waiting to hear what the #1 vampire movie is.
Get on with it.
Yes, get on with it!
Oh, I am enjoying this scene.
Get on with it!
My #1 favorite vampire movie of all time is 1987's The Lost Boys. This movie is not just my favorite vampire movie, but it may very well be one of my favorite movies of all time. The film follows 2 brothers that move with their mother to the fictional town of Santa Carla and then discover that the town is a haven for vampires. It's incredibly 80s in all the right ways. And it's another movie that I vividly remember where I was when I first saw it. It was 2005 and I was in a hotel in Houston as we had evacuated from our home in New Orleans from Hurricane Katrina. My world was upside down and my future was uncertain. But there was something about sitting next to my sister on an uncomfortable hotel couch watching vampires suffer death by stereo that just healed me at a time when I needed it. But that was only a part of it. It was the 80s soundtrack, the Coreys and their comedy, the punk rock vampires speeding around on bikes, the oiled up saxophone player, and most importantly, Grandpa. This movie is absolutely perfect in every way and you cannot change my mind. So that is my top 10 vampire list. Again, this was so hard to just pick 10 because there's so many good ones. And with Nosferatu and Salem's Lot remakes coming out later this year, who knows? Those movies could completely change my ranking in the future. What are your favorite vampire films? Let me know in the comments. I hope y'all enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a big old thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so when new videos hit the channel, you'll be notified. Boy, I tell you what, if you could kill vampires with finger guns, they wouldn't stand a chance. And as always, thank y'all for watching, and I'll catch you nerds later. Yeah, it's still really hard to talk in these. I don't know why. I put that back in.